Hi folks, this is going to be a short video just covering the basic tools you'll need for some coppicing work. So this video is aimed primarily at people who are new to coppicing or have a small holding or small section they want to work. It's not really going to be aimed at a commercial forester or person who does coppicing on a large scale. They'll be very aware of what they need, and so this is really aimed at people who want to get an understanding of how they can go about doing their first coppice. So one of the things that's come to my attention through some of my videos was people were not really aware that they could actually just use some quite basic tools. Now if you're using short rotation coppice, the product is actually not often that big, so it's actually easily handled with a variety of hand tools. So I've got a few here that I'll talk through. You don't need them all, but some are going to be useful and we'll talk through them as we go. Something I think that's worth noting is where possible, it's always a good idea to try and buy the best quality tool you can, because if it's something you're going to use a lot for a long period of time, better quality does tend to last more and it'll be easier to use and safer. It's also important that your tools, any kind of edge tools, are sharp and kept sharp and you know how to sharpen them. So the first tools we'll talk about are tools that pretty much every gardener will have, and they're very simple, and for small trees, small stands of coppice, you may get by with actually just these two tools. Obviously secateurs everyone has. Once again, try and make sure you have a good pair, it'll stand you in good stead. And then a small pruning saw. You can actually take down quite large trees with a small pruning saw, and this type, so as opposed to a bow saw which can get in the way in small sections, a small pruning saw can actually get between stems quite easily. So the obvious next step, bigger saw and loppers which replace the secateurs. So for when you're getting into larger stems or larger branches, you know, these are quite industrial loppers, but a small bow saw and good quality loppers, you know, will also then take you to another level on what you can take down. Now when you start limbing or taking off the side branches of larger trunks, your loppers aren't going to be as useful. So in this case it can be really good to have some sort of sharp edge tool like an axe or a bill hook. Now bill hooks are commonly used for obviously hedge laying, but certainly in the UK they were a very common and popular tool for woodland management in years gone by. Now they're not as readily available these days. I think the best place to find them is probably most likely to be car boot sales, etc. There are still some available that are off the shelf, and this one is Morris of Dunsford. They're still producing, I think, forged bill hooks, and certainly I can recommend them. You will need to sharpen them, but they are a very useful tool, and if you are going to do any hedge laying, they also will be good for that. Now this small axe is a Kent pattern axe, and from what I understand it's a traditional design that was used in Britain for many centuries, and probably was the axe that most smallholders or crofters had. It was light and cheap, and it's very effective for small limbing work. Now last but not least, most people usually associate any kind of forestry work with a chainsaw, but you know, I think generally I don't tend to use it on the smaller scale stuff that we do. When I'm doing larger expanses of coppice, we will use a chainsaw, or if they're particularly big trees. Chainsaws, you know, I wouldn't recommend you just rush out and get one. You really need to understand how to use one. You should do a course. They're very dangerous. But if you are going to get one, get some training, get a good quality saw. You don't need a very big one, but you need one that's going to be robust and will last. But don't enter into using a chainsaw lightly, they're extremely dangerous. But I think the idea behind this video was to show you that in the main, on a small coppice, small rotation, you can actually do a lot of it with hand tools, and that's what I'd advise. Certainly starting out, get a feel for it, use some hand tools, get comfortable with it before you go down the route of the more commercial way of using a chainsaw. Well, I hope that was useful to some of you who are thinking of doing some copse work or managing some of the trees on your land. I have got a playlist on woodland management where I discuss coppicing and have some videos on coppicing willow and hazel, etc. So if you're interested, go check them out. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.